Friday on our anniversary.
All right, let's call it to order. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. All right, hopefully everybody's having a good summer. Let's go to start with the consent. No. Gotta do the clerk pro tem. Do I have a motion to appoint Elliot Garcia as the clerk pro tem? Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right, now we go to the consent agenda. Before we started, is there anything that anyone wants pulled from the consent? All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Do I have a second? Okay, any discussion on any of the items on here? Questions, concerns, comments? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any against? All right. Do we have any questions from the public?
We do.
We have one question. How was the BOCES slots allocated to the MCSD? How many students from MCSD were denied a slot? Can we petition BOCES for more slots to accommodate MCSD students?
Colin, do you want to take it or do you want me?
I'm happy to do that now, but I do have it as part of my report, so it's really up to the board.
All right, yeah, I mean, we'll come back to that during Caroline's because it's a lot longer discussion about how many slots. So we'll come back to that overall discussion in a few minutes. Any questions, concerns from the public?
That was my question.
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, all right. All right, so, President, Vice President's report. I don't really have anything right now, other than, oh, never mind. Chris, did you wanna?
Just first off, I wanted to thank everyone for voting me in to this position. I'll do my best to help the district. And I also wanted to just remind Perry sent an email about the next board meeting prior to the board retreat. So, and really it's to kind of, you know, and we've only been, I think I've only been on one, right? It's really to help strengthen the board, give us the communication needs, you know, anything that tools that we need just to become stronger. We do have a couple new, I don't know, have you gone through a retreat?
I don't think anybody has.
Right.
Well,
I'd like
Howard,
to retreat.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's right.
Right. Okay. So just a reminder, it's prior to the next board meeting.
Yeah, and it's really, that's why we can have it, because it's not to discuss district business, it's to discuss the board. So, you know, I think the president's a bonehead, you know, so you just say that and then everybody else argues against that. Anyway, so I look forward to that. And it's 5 o'clock, right? 5 to 7
5 to 7.
before the next board meeting. All right. Caroline?
So good evening, everyone. My report today is filled with a lot of exciting information about the start of school. First and foremost, as of the consent agenda being finalized, we have all of our instructional vacancies and our paraprofessional vacancies filled for the school year, so that's very exciting. Yeah. We do have some other vacancies throughout the district. Right now, we were able to canvass for the senior account clerk typist position. So we did receive that list from civil service. The canvas letters went out. As of our last count, we had at least 3 people that were interested, and Ken was setting up screening interviews with the business office staff and Elliot. So that's exciting. Hopefully we'll have that soon. We did hear word that we would be getting the senior typist canvas letter, or list, but we haven't gotten that just yet, and the account clerk is the same. So we're still waiting on that, but I am excited that all of our classrooms will have teachers and the aides and assistants that we need to start the school year. So in terms of our instructional preparation, we have been working as an administrative team with Branching Minds. That is a social emotional learning platform that will assist us with matching students with interventions for social emotional learning, but it also has a component that's academic as well. So for students who struggle academically, or even just because of the pandemic are struggling academically, maybe they wouldn't typically, it will help us to match them with interventions in the areas of literacy and numeracy. Additionally, we will be having training for all of our staff in September on Branching Minds, starting with a core team in each building so that they can really sort of facilitate the rollout in the building, and they can be most familiar and be able to be on-site support for the rest of the building. So that's exciting. Many of you might remember that in the spring, we talked about OLAIS, which is an anti-bullying character education program. I have a meeting with a consultant on Monday, the 22nd. Previously, Laura and I had met with this consultant, but it never got further toward the contract phase. So we will be doing that hopefully after this meeting in the next week or so. So that's good, moving right along. Our Eureka materials are starting to trickle in. That's our new math program. We have 5,100 pounds of materials coming in for this program. So we're literally unloading pallets, which is very exciting. It will actually be aligning the entire K-12 math program, which is huge. That's something that not many districts can say. There's a lot of piecemeal, and we will finally have one continuous math program that we can measure apples to apples throughout the district. And we also have training coming for our teachers in the fall. Some of them worked on preliminary training with Victoria Curry, but we have Great Minds, which is the parent company of Eureka, will be providing some training for our teachers in the first couple of months of school to make sure that the rollout is smooth and that they have everything that they need. On August 29th, we will welcome our new teachers to the district. So we're very excited, like I said, that all of our new teachers will be able to attend. We've also invited their mentors to come here and meet them, so that at least they will have a familiar face going into the school year. So that's exciting. We'll have a rigorous day, 2 days for them, where they'll be able to start learning about the district, learning about the procedures, learning about the curriculum, starting to look at and map their own curriculum based on what exists already in the district. And they'll have an opportunity to, like I said, work with some veteran staff. Our second year teachers are also invited back if they would like to attend. Sometimes I think it's good for our new teachers to see someone who just started and is settled in and doing okay. So that will be great. On September 6th, we will have our superintendent's conference day to kick off the year. That again will be a day of training, and teachers will have some time to work independently on the things that they need to address starting this school year. We will do some of our annual trainings on things like DASA and school safety and security that day as well. So we're very excited in planning that day out. And then I will get back to the BOCES CTI update because that actually will be the longest part of this report. So I just want to say that the facilities maintenance and custodial workers have been working so incredibly hard this summer. Everything looks great, from creating outdoor learning spaces to updating the facilities for athletics up on the in the athletic complex, to interior work. As you can see, you walk down a much widened hallway where they removed banks of lockers and really help the aesthetic, but also there's a purpose for this. So each middle school grade will have their lockers proximate to where their classes are, for convenience for the students and also so that they can be timely to class. And I know Mr. Mullins and Mr. Garcia are going to talk more about that as well. But I just wanted to say thank you because it's just an unbelievable amount of work and everything is looking really great.
One thing, Carolyn, just to go back a second.
Mhm.
As long as I've been on the board, I know that both the president of the board and the vice president of the board have asked whether or not, it would help if we attended both the new teacher orientation and superintendent's day. For some reason, that's never happened. And then, just so you all know, Chris and I have been invited to attend both of these. And I think it'll be really good for us to meet these new people, to also show, that we're together on, within the administration of the board. So thank you very much
Absolutely.
for including us.
Absolutely. I think it's important to show that, we care about them, being our newest members of the Millbrook team. And I think it's an important message to send for Superintendent's Conference Day about, being aligned in our vision and where we'd like to go this year. So I'm really excited that you're both able to attend. For the next, the business office, I'd also like to say thank you to them. They've worked tremendously hard, as you all know, over this past school year. As you were walking in, they were still in their offices working, but we did just get our single audit for the school year submitted and approved. So that happened last week. And that was a job well done for the business office. So I appreciate everything that they're doing. In terms of bus patrol, this, you'll remember, is the stop arm camera program. So we did meet with some vendors from both. I met with Brian Fitzgerald from First Student, who let us know that, very interestingly enough, he's already been told that Millbrook was on board with this, and that is where this was moving forward from. And actually reached out to Bus Patrol to let them know that no, in fact, Millbrook was not on board with this. We haven't even been asked about this. So we haven't been in a decision-making position regarding any of this. So with that, we scheduled a meeting with Bus Patrol and the county. And I actually was double booked, so Elliot sat in on that. And they were able to explain how the whole process works. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I've got the gist of it. So the exterior cameras, we do not have access to. That is something that Bus Patrol has access to, and the county. And that's where the revenue comes from that pays for the installation of these cameras. Essentially they are, so it's a violation. That's how they pay for these cameras. They are supposed to have the full return within 5 years. There was some question because the contract only goes out till 2025, I believe it was. And then there was a little bit of a lack of clarity. Well, what happens after 2025? And we can essentially, if the contract is renewed with Dutchess County, we can re-up and decide, or we can decide to have them then removed. There's also an option for interior cameras. And the county would not have access to the interior cameras if we chose to install them, but we would, and Bus Patrol would have that footage, that data. So immediately I was like, well, we would need to know a lot more about that if we were to agree to that. So we do have the contract to be reviewed by our legal counsel, and then next meeting we can bring that forward. But the district gets no revenue. The revenue is split between Bus Patrol and the county. Anything else you want to add about that?
There was a lot of questions about how the violation works. It's a civil violation, like a red light camera, so the owner of the vehicle gets the violation, just so it doesn't really matter who the driver is, and they say that they can't even see who the driver is. They're just taking pictures of the vehicle, so that may be worth noting for anybody that's curious about that. And the video footage for the interior cameras either is accessed locally by plugging into the device or through the cloud, and we would have to petition the company to get the footage, bus patrol, to get that footage of our students on the bus. And those interior cameras only run roughly 10 minutes after the bus shuts down. So, and the bus has to be running for them to extract it through the cloud. There's some nuances to the technology.
Do you know if the buses have it posted in the back that they're equipped with cameras? I mean, I know it's a revenue stream for for them, but really for us, it's the safety of the kids. So if we had something posted in the back of the bus that it's equipped with, cameras or whatever it might say, the people behind them might think twice. I know obviously word of mouth will get around, but there's a lot of people that drive through Millbrook that aren't from Millbrook. So just a thought.
I don't remember them saying anything about
Okay.
that, but we can ask follow up.
What if the papers, if they're gonna, if a lot of schools are doing it.
Bulk of the county.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen people blow by school buses with the red lights on, and it's one of the scariest things you can see, especially if you've seen any of those ones that ended really bad, not in Millbrook, but there's video from. The one internal to the bus, I don't know, I have a hard time with the fact that they have access to our kids. I don't know.
I agree, and I don't know that we need it,
Yeah,
because our buses are already equipped with the first student camera.
Yeah.
So we have access to that if we need it.
I just, I don't,
There would be no reason to have additional.
No, I agree.
but I would love to have something that makes it painful for people that do that.
Were there any statistics that this actually worked and deterred people? Because I did see that pamphlet they sent out, but it wasn't actual statistics. And I don't know if they provided anything on that.
No, and they said that, so the reason, as I understood it, was that there's a significant decrease within the first 2 years, so it's like a drop off, but then it's sort of like levels off and that's it. So there wasn't really decrease over time. That was their explanation, but they didn't have any statistics to provide us. It's new in New York State, it's new in this area kind of thing. That was the answer that was given. So no, I know you were interested in that. We actually asked a specific follow-up question. Yeah.
Even if it hopefully deters
Yeah.
one or two drivers from doing it.
Well, you
That's a
look
good
at
point.
the red light cameras, I mean, there's one near where I live, and that thing, the first weekend they put it in, they had over 3,000 violations came off of it, and it's now down to and this is like running the yellow. Oh, it was yellow about a mile back, and then they blow through the red light. It seems to have knocked those down dramatically, and they made a lot of money in the first couple of weeks. But it would be great if it would stop that. All right,
I don't know if it's an appropriate time to ask about, are we staffed with bus drivers of the week?
That's a great question. So, Ken has been extremely helpful, our interim business official. He's been extremely helpful in working with first student. He has been over at the garage a number of times. They have assured us that we're fully staffed. We don't exactly have a plethora of subs, so there could still be a situation where if someone is out, we might have to combine runs, but we are, according to them at this point, fully staffed, which is great news.
Yes.
He's been talking to them about running dry runs. And he's very specific about how that should be done. We should stop at every stop. And I mean, he's been going through everything. So, so we've had great communication with them. We've been talking about, what happened last year. How can we prevent something like that from happening again this year? So we have been all over it, and we've been assured repeatedly that we are ready to go for September.
And that's including after school and sports and the whole night.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the charters are always a challenge,
Well-
right? Because that's in addition to the regular runs and hard to predict sometimes. But yes.
I'm trying not to be that guy, but they told us they were ready last year.
I know, so we've specifically asked the questions about all the things that happened last year.
Okay.
And do we have the right addresses, and we have to drop off pickup addresses, not just home addresses, and we've been going through all of the things that went wrong, so to speak, to make sure that they are right now. They have all of the special runs, that we make to out of district placements and whatnot. They've had that information. So
Hopefully.
And
I'm choosing to have faith.
if it doesn't go well, are we prepared to communicate better so parents know there's delays?
Absolutely. Yes, that will be our, continuous communication loop. And I do have to say, the first couple of days of school, always
Won't be
difficult.
perfect.
Right, and we're dealing with, some youngsters who have never ridden a bus before, who don't know what bus they're going on, so there's that constant, trying to reinforce, I go on this bus, and so there's going to be, some bumps in the road that we're gonna have to work out, that's just the way it is with little kids getting on buses. But it should not be, the issue of bus runs as it was last year.
So when will they have the dry runs? Because what I'd like to see is, here's our 27 bus runs.
Mhm.
We ran through them and the longest possible drop off was 24 minutes, They should be able to record that stuff and then come and show us. Yeah, look, as far as we know, we're prepared.
Mhm.
If a kid gets off at the wrong stop because, wanted to go to his friend's house and we gotta go. Those things happen, but if we can get that, they really are ready this time. By numbers, not just,
Yeah, and I can ask them specifically when those runs, I know Ken was communicating via email with them.
Okay.
About their dry runs, so I can ask specifically when that will be.
And Caroline,
Mhm.
the board, I think there was only one time when Brian Fitzgerald had joined
Mhm.
via Zoom, and we had a number of questions. I don't think we ever received follow-up on those, like, for instance, I believe he said the buses were equipped with the GPS tracking, but some drivers didn't have it turned on, or can you look, do you know if the GPS tracking is ready and it's going to be utilized? So the parent, a bus is running late, a parent calls for a student, they can find out exactly where their child is.
I can find them.
I think part of
There
part
was
of
an
the,
app, yeah,
I forget, I'm sorry.
First View was.
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
app.
And a couple years ago, parents. Yeah.
but part of the problem was they called the bus garage and there was nobody to answer the phone.
Right.
And that's what really, then they started calling the police, troopers
Yeah.
and, which, just everything started to spiral, but you're right. I mean,
So I believe that we remedied that last year where there was going to be somebody there until the last bus was in, somebody to answer the phones. But I can double check on that.
yeah,
In my experience, I have called First Bus so many times. They've always answered me and always given me good information. And it's been several times that I've called. So I've had a very good experience.
you want to tell us why you've been calling? Maybe that's one of the issues.
So I will double check on that and I'll get back to you. But I believe that we did remedy that there was supposed to be someone to answer the phone. So all of the buses were that. I did want to mention our new food service consultant, Nancy Padron is her name, from Silver Spoons. So you will see that there was a lead addition to the agenda because after it took a little bit for us to get her up and running, between our local technology and mostly the state, getting her the state approvals that she needed to be able to get into our specific Millbrook system and information. So she had to do a calculation called the paid lunch equity in order to create our school lunch prices for this year. So the USDA requires that the average of our school lunch prices work out to be $3.20. It's different each year, but $3.20 for this year. So she has to look at participation rates in all of the buildings and then calculate how do we get to an approximate $3.20. So that's why it took a little bit, but we have our school lunch prices that were posted on the agenda for the school year. They equal at this point an average of $3.25. And the reason for that was that she wanted to be over because the cost of food right now is very unpredictable. And as she said, you know, I can't even guarantee that that's going to cover the cost of food because we just don't know what those prices will be, but that's why she went in slightly over where it was required for us to be.
And she's also gonna take a look at the actual menu itself.
Yes, so she's creating the menu. Once we have the school lunch prices approved today, I will be able to give her that information. She'll be sending us the information that we need to send out to the community regarding free and reduced lunch prices, menus, all of that information. So the community will have that in preparation for school. So she's been really a joy to work with. You know, part of what she's going to do is she's going to get us ready for the school year, but then she's also going to be giving us recommendations for how to improve things. So when she looked at our menu, she said, yep, the menu is compliant, but I also see some areas that we can improve. So her menu is going to be improved in terms of like the standard for school lunch. So, you know, I look forward to learning along. I've learned a lot already, just in the short time working with her. She's extremely knowledgeable. And she had a great idea, actually, because we are short-staffed in the kitchen. She said, well, why don't you send your postings to the bus company? Because in between runs, some of our drivers could actually work in the kitchen. So that was a great idea. We need part-time cleaners, we need, right? So we sent it over there, and Karen and Melissa at First Student were very happy. They're like, this is a great idea. So they have their orientation and training on the 24th for Student. So hopefully maybe we get some folks who are gonna work in between their bus runs, which would be great, right? It would fill our needs. So we will be scheduling Board of Education walkthroughs as we do every year before school, so that the board folks who are able to attend, usually in 2 separate groups, will be able to see all of the buildings, all of the updates, and just how everything is shaping up to welcome our students and teachers back. For those of you who are part of the strategic planning committee, we will be resuming that this fall. I have a meeting with Gabby Hewitt, who is our consultant from Education Elements, and we will be meeting with her on this Thursday. We'll be meeting with her to talk about next steps in the process. And this part is going to be much more involvement with the community, which is great. So we'll be getting much more feedback from the community and community participation on in forums and committees and whatnot. This year we will be having, I believe it is 5 community family university dates. All of them will be social emotional learning themes, and each building is going to be spearheading the efforts of one of these family unites. So we have decided that this year, due to low participation in the past, we're going to do it hybrid, so that we can have folks attend virtually if they wish. That may limit some of the presenters that we can have, because some folks, due to insurance, can only do in-person audiences. But either way, if we get any participation on such a valuable topic, I think it will be great. And additionally, this school year, right now my cabinet consists of Elliot in terms of central office, because we do have many vacancies. But we are planning to do coffee with the cabinet this year. So every other month, we will have a Thursday morning where folks can come in, have coffee with us, and just discuss things that are, you know, keeping them up at night, things that we need to hear from them, and maybe they don't have another opportunity to bring that to us. So that will be coffee with the cabinet. And then on the alternating months, we are going to be doing an evening community circle. That will be virtual. So folks can log in, it'll be webinar style, and we'll try to give families a heads up on things that are coming up. So if we're getting close to first report card time, it might be a review on, you know, how to log into Parent Portal or how to get access to Parent Portal, something like that. And then just, you know, conversational, they can ask questions, and we'll have some guest folks from the administrative team throughout the school year as well. Just with the
That's for the parents.
Yeah.
The call group cabinet with ex-parents.
Yeah, parents and then community circle as well will be, more of us pushing out information, but then it would be on a topic that would be timely, happening throughout the district.
And you said the community circle will be, will that be virtual?
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll try to alternate each month, morning, evening, so that we can kind of hit all of the families, regardless of work schedules and stuff, because that is a challenge sometimes for people to participate. So that's, my report.
Can I
Other
ask you one
than-
question just before you go
You
into those
can.
kids, because I know, just going back to Eureka Math.
Mhm.
I had kids in the school around Common Core days. I'm not sure if it'll be that much of a jolt, but if it is, are we prepared to kind of educate the parents as well as far as, kind of what they do? I mean, I spent many hours on YouTube trying to understand Common Core
Mhm.
and explain it the way the teachers are, so I'm not just like, no, you just, do this.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's that much of a jolt. If it's not, then it is what it is, but if it's a Common Core change, then I think the parents
So it's not a
should get
Common
some
Core
education.
level change.
But it's-
It's consistent with the standards that are currently in place.
Okay.
So it will be a lot of the same language that students are used to. The good thing about Eureka is they do have training modules and whatnot. And we have, Victoria was looking before she left. She was looking at small snapshots to deliver to parents
Awesome.
virtually
Okay.
because of that exact thing. When Common Core was rolled out, the implementation was very challenging because it was all rolled out at once. So if you've never had a student who went, K on up in the Common Core, you would have no way of knowing what a number bond was or any of those
Right,
things.
right.
So even as educators who lived through it, it was challenging.
Okay.
For sure. So BOCES. Our BOCES CTI program, first of all, BOCES is doing phenomenal things in the career and tech ed program. They've developed new programs, they're developing more new programs. And because of that, which is really a very positive thing, our numbers and requests have increased significantly. So the initial request for BOCES for this school year was 17, and then it crept up. Mr. Sype advocated to the business office, and we were able to secure 24 spots in the BOCES programs for the district. So I did actually calculate, just so we have an idea. In terms of the county, Mr. Sype reached out to the principals around the county. So this is of the schools that replied. We are number 3 in terms of the percentage of students who will have access to BOCES programs this year. And we included all the schools that did respond. I think it's important to note that from Millbrook, we increased from 16 students last year to 24 students. This current year, our original request, like I said, was 17, then 18 students, now we're up to 24. And you'll notice places like Red Hook increased from 30 last year to 42. FDR did not respond with their initial request for the year, but we did learn from BOCES that they just recently requested another 18 spots. So BOCES as a program overall is really just blossoming, which is amazing.
But to
they're-
answer this, one of those specific questions, so BOCES doesn't allocate seats to anybody.
No,
We have to say to BOCES, we think we're gonna need 24. Each seat is 12 grand,
it's 12.5.
12.5.
Yeah.
So we have to, not only do we have to back in April, we have, because it's gotta go into the budget, so we have to turn around and say, we're gonna bump it up to 24, means we're gonna need 24 times 12.5,
Correct.
and that's in the budget. For us to go over that is sort of, but none of it has, BOCES doesn't allocate anything.
No,
We
the
sort of,
only challenge with BOCES allocations is that their programs, some of them for safety reasons can only have a certain number of students in each session. So while they may not allocate it, they do have caps on their
Yeah.
programs. So it's always subject to our budgeting, but then also their program availability, which we don't have any control over. So I just want to point out that typically with the BOCES programs, our seniors go in the morning, countywide seniors go in the morning, for the most part, and juniors go in the afternoon. So just to give you context, the seniors in the AM, there's 224 seniors returning this year. And there's 448, this is as of yesterday, but they are accepting new applications. So as of yesterday, 448 juniors will be attending this year. So the program is literally doubling, in terms of new students entering in as opposed to returning students from last year. It's amazing. So we do have additional students who are interested in BOCES programs, but for reasons such as budgeting and also program availability, did not get into BOCES, but would still like to attend for alternate programs. So this is the conversation to be had with the board. I do want to point out that the previous business official, when they built their budget, the superintendent's budget for last year, there was 18 slots budgeted for. And they agreed to go up to 24, understanding that we would have to find that additional money. We additionally have right now, roughly 6 students that we have more students who had requested to go, but either didn't finish their application, the parents didn't give the final approval, etc. But we have 6 students right now that as far as we know, given the opportunity, would also like to go. So that would be a total of 30.
So what
And
we're-
again, we don't know that there's
Yeah.
program availability
Right.
still.
But what we're talking about is to do those 6, we would have to find an additional 72 something, 75,000. 35,000.
And then to
and-
do an additional
Yeah.
6, we would have to find
Right.
an additional 75,000.
I mean, the 24 we committed, so I don't know how you go back on that. The decision the board needs to make, and I think you all know how much I think of CTI. I love that program. I love the options it offers for students. We have to decide, and for those who've been sort of needling around in budgeting, there are places to take it. Are we going to do that? Are we gonna take those additional 6, find $75,000 or not? I mean, we do have the option of, since we have to find an additional 75,000 to take it from 18 to 24, because that wasn't budgeted properly. So we really need to come up with $150,000 if we want to do the 6 that are not currently, I don't even know how you say it, they're currently within the 24 seats, so to go to 30 seats.
Correct.
And that's the key. Now, whether, because as Caroline said, OC's programs, there are not that many seats in each one of the programs. And whether or not the 6 people that we have, or the 6 students that we have that want to go to an alternate thing, if we don't know if they're even going to get in. But we have to make that decision. I think we need to make it like now, tonight.
Yeah, and the reality is we are competing with the entire town. So the seats that are available, we can do the best that we can to expedite anything on our end, but that doesn't mean that there's not people ahead of us.
Carolyn, an interesting thing to look at is if, say we add the 6 on there. We're now with Pine Plains at the top of the list. So what are the other schools at 5 and 6 and 3 and 2% offer within their district? That might overlap with those. So it would be an interesting thing just to look at, because moving forward, maybe we add a program that might be really popular. Just a thought. That's kind of after the fact.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we need to do too is I think we need to come up with, where do we want to land, right? So is it a percentage of students that we want to be able to accommodate? Because otherwise, we're always going to have to go back and revisit and go back and revisit and based on, you know, interest. Whereas if we'll go up to this percentage of students each cohort, then at least we know when we're budgeting for that, and can work from that number. You know, there are some schools in the county that's what they do. They have this many seats and that.
Yeah, I
The
mean, I
one thing
don't-
I'll say is that in the 8 years that I've been here, we've always tried to get as many students that wanted to go. But right now, this is a byproduct of, you know, interest in the program is just soaring. So we're in a different situation.
Can you just clarify, we do have 24 budgeted? We don't, we have 18 budgeted.
18. So when we had such an increase, Mr. Sape and the counselors went back to the business office and said, you know, can we push that number up? We have so many students who are interested. And yeah, we'll go to 24. We'll find the money for 24.
Did you tell them you had 12, or did you give them a number at all, or you just said we have
No, they were pushing for.
as many as possible?
Yeah.
And you don't even know if BOCES had seats for those.
Well, we do, we know, but we don't know that there's not other applications ahead of folks. And again, this is, you know, I can tell you that, for example, you know, in construction trades, there's, right, in cosmetology, there's 0. In graphic arts, there's 4 seats. But will our kiddos, if they're interested in that, will our kiddos be the first 4 seats of applications that we then push in tomorrow? That we don't know. They could have, you know, already in hand from another school district 4 seats.
So we really need to deal with 3 separate things. First is the 18 to 24, which it was a budgeting error. Do we support finding that $75,000, probably in one of our reserve funds, to cover that? Or are we going to basically say, no, can't have 24, go to 18? I don't think we need a motion on that. I think we just need to make that decision as a board. The second thing we need to deal with is, are we going to support finding another 6 slots, another $75,000, probably in the same place, to support those other 6 students. Now, again, if they don't get in, or the program's closed, whatever it is, then, you know, we don't pay for it. But it could be, and we should assume that it's going to be 30 students. And then the final thing that we really need to deal with is to set a percentage. I mean, it's not fair to, you know, let's say next year's class has 450 kids in it, and they still only get 24 seats. We need to do this, in my opinion, on basis of a percentage. Like, you know, if we have 276 kids in the class, then we should be 27.5, you know, make it 28 seats. I think we owe it to, you know, the students, so that they'll know well in advance, and even our budgeting thing, we'll know pretty close to what the seats are, like, not seats, the number of students are, before the budget goes in. Then we can budget for the proper amount of seats at BOCES, and then we can, you know, then we don't have this concern year after year about how many do we do. I mean, to go from 16 to 30, I mean, that's, but like I said, I compliment our staff here for, like, really going out of their way to explain BOCES. Probably did too good of a job, but I mean, to me, I love that program, and I'd do anything to support it. So
Is there any impact on the school as the percentage goes up? Do any more classes fall on a low enrollment list, or sections get closed, or anything like that?
I think that's why we have to put a percentage on it. So
Yeah, I'm
like, you
saying,
know,
like, what happens if
yeah.
the percentage goes up? Is it?
Yeah, so typically speaking, by the time students are ready to go to BOCES, they have a lot of their classes done and out of the way. And this will fulfill most of their elective credits and depending on whatever program they're going into, they could be getting an English credit there. They could be getting a math credit there. So it kind of depends. But typically speaking, they're going to be taking junior, senior year, at least one English class here, and then they'll be taking their social studies classes here as well. So we can kind of predict that they will still be taking certain classes here, regardless of whether they go to BOCES, because BOCES doesn't cover that. So it's not really going to change that for us much. And the classes that they could get there, like I said, they would get one credit of English, but over 2 years. So it's not really going to decrease much. And by the time they're into their senior year, most students aren't required to take math anyway. So maybe by a little bit, but it's not going to be detrimental to our programming.
So-
Sorry, question. Students number, I guess 19 to 24, the 6 that we have not been budgeted for, have they already been told they've been accepted and they've already been accepted by BOCES? Okay. And then my second question is, does BOCES offer any type of financial aid that's student specific to any circumstances you need?
Yeah, no, no, and primarily because it's the responsibility of the school district to pay. So the 18 to 24 mystery I just found today when I went into the business office and I said, so if we need to find these 6 seats, where can we find the money from? And the answer was like, well, it's actually 12 seats because we didn't have.
Oh, I'm sorry. So students 18 to 30 have already been told they'd be going?
No, not 18 to
Okay.
30, 18 to 24.
Okay.
But when I went in looking for funding for an extra 6 students, they were like, well, actually, these 6 haven't been budgeted for.
So- Why don't we at least do a straw poll on the 18 to 20, well, really it's taking 24 back to 18. So I'd like to go around if yes is to leave it at 24, fine, and authorize Ken in the business office to find the money. Jen?
I don't see how you say no.
I was gonna say something like.
No, I mean, the
If you
kids,
vote yes, you're a nice person.
they're saying what they want to do, like the rest of the life. I mean, it's- I need to try.
For students 18 to 24 that have already been told they're going, yes, then.
All right, so. Find no money.
Yes.
The second is, do we take it from 24 to 30? To 30 to accommodate the other 6 students that want to go, but we don't have the seats yet. And it's a complicated question. I hate to personally, I hate to shut down, like I said, the staff here has gone out of their way to drum up interest and make sure that they understand what CTI truly is. But it is go find $75,000. An additional $75,000. So yes is to go to 30. All right, Jen? Chris?
For this year, yes, and then I think we set a criterion.
Yes,
I'd rather set a percentage now, just stick to it. Because if we just arbitrarily go to 30 now, I feel like we lock ourselves into that percentage going forward, or
Oh, no, I would say the next thing we're gonna do is vote on a percentage.
I'd rather just do the percentage and stick
To
to
it.
it.
So that would be 28, basically.
well.
Well, whatever the percentage is.
Well,
We choose 12%, then it's like,
Okay.
whatever. I'd rather just choose the percentage and whatever that allows.
well, it's 30 at 420, or 30 at 276.
Yeah, you
Good, I'm
have,
not that
Can't see my giant head anyway.
We need the percentage of
30.
so what is the percent, if we said we're gonna go to 30, what is that percentage?
Yeah.
Gotta be about 12.
It would be just about 11%, 10.86.
Well,
So we-
okay, but 1 second, the enrollment, that's the entire high school.
Correct.
How
That's
many?
the entire high school for all of those high schools, because I wasn't
Yeah,
sure.
so how many students are eligible to,
11th and 12th graders. So
okay, so
it's
what's
about half,
that number?
well, it's different because every class
Yeah.
is different. So that's where the percentage is helpful
Right.
because
Well, right,
Yeah.
so for, do we know? For how many
How many
11th and 12th
juniors and
graders
seniors?
incoming?
Didn't she have juniors as like 446? Is that what was on the chart before?
that's for the whole county.
Um,
Yeah, that's.
But again, if you go by percentage.
Yeah.
We're covering ourselves for the highs and lows of
That's true.
classes. That's-
So we'll go, because I think that's a better idea. Suppose we set our limit as 11%.
We still got a cap at 30. You're gonna do that. You might find a couple more.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's it. Why would that be? If we said 11 and capped at 30? Why would that be a problem for anybody?
No, I
For this
mean, you
year,
could
and 11
always,
going forward.
My opinion was going to be to do it next year because these students weren't already told they would be going, even though they, I love BOCES too. I recommend it to everyone. I think it's wonderful. I wish all of our students who want to go can go. For me, 75,000, another 75,000 is a lot, and we're budgeting that just for the 11th and 12th graders. I'm new to this, I don't know how much budget we can do, but what if something else comes up and other students want to do other things? So for me, I was gonna say to do it, start the percentage at a higher percentage than we have now for next year. That was just my opinion.
The
So-
class sizes unfortunately are smaller going down. Great, so.
Right. So suppose we started over and we say, yes is approving 11% cap this year at 30. And then,
No, it's starting.
starting, or cap it this year at 30 and then 11% going forward. Because I think what we're gonna have to do is go back to one of our policies and update that to actually put the 11% in it for future years. All right, is that, Jen, you okay with that?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Yeah,
It'd be 30 for this year, moving forward, 11%. I don't know how confident we are in being able to get that additional budget. So that's the only.
You can say no.
So that would be the only
Yeah.
reason that I say no, is I think
Okay.
maybe something else might come up, but definitely for next year at having it higher, it would.
We still talk.
No. And you, did you remember me mean? Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. Dave.
With a smile.
Yeah, and I vote yes. All right, so. What we need to know though is, as soon as physically possible, how many of our kids actually get in?
Yeah,
We set it to 30, but, you know, if there are only 2 of those 26 get in, that makes that whole discussion about where to find the money.
Way different, yeah,
Way different.
absolutely. So we'll work on that first thing.
All right,
And as soon as we have information from both these, I will let everyone. know.
and if you
Circle
can,
back to something, I'd like to know where the money came from.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
I mean, there is a cost. Somebody else is losing out. Curious who it is.
Absolutely.
the other thing too is if you can check with Julie that we did the straw poll, so we know where the board stands on it. But if we need to put it in the policy, or if we need to have a motion, then that's what we do from this point on. All right,
Mhm.
Would you take a comment?
yeah, well, I was gonna say, since I think everybody that was involved wanted to have comments, and we did the comments before we did the subject, so.
Yeah, thank you. My name's Reverend Jacob Dell. I'm the pastor at St. Peter's Church. My wife Sasha and my stepdaughter Maya are here. We live at 22 Lower Lane. Thank you all for your time tonight, especially when you are volunteering. As a pastor of a church, I know how hard it is to get people in a room to think about things when you're, you know, of this nature. So thank you for your time and thank you for your advocacy on behalf of our students. We're here tonight to advocate for one of those 6. We're here, so hopefully, you know, that counts for the seriousness if you take it. I know that Maya applied to cosmetology, that was her first choice, but you're saying district-wide, that's completely full,
But countywide.
countywide.
Yeah.
Is there any attrition that happens, or is there any wait lists? Is there anything that happens and any wiggle room there? And if that is truly locked out, can we put in a substitute, another choice? How can we be part of the
Yeah,
conversation?
I believe we actually have that ready to know
Okay,
from email exchanges.
right. I think it's culinary is the next one. And then media, but there might be other programs that could work. So if we can be part of that conversation.
So we
great.
can have high school staff reach out
Yeah,
and then we can go from there. But I can say with certainty, cosmetology is typically the most popular
Yeah.
and filled up pretty quickly and it is definitely.
and then the only other thing I think I would say is that, in some of the communication we got, we were first told everybody got in. And I can hear now that, probably why that was, there was sort of that expectation being set, and the disappointment. And yes, you did a great job advocating for it, so I think in terms of managing expectations. If her application had been in 24, 48 hours earlier, would that have made a difference?
And we won't know that.
We
because-
don't know that, so I
Yeah,
mean,
we
is it
won't
really
know.
first come, first serve, or
But it's around the,
around the county?
Yeah.
So
and
I don't know how much that was emphasized of like, if you want to do this, leave the room right now and fill out the application and get it in the next 20 minutes. Because I think we all want to take time and talk to our parents and think about what it is we want to do. And these seem like such big life decisions. And they are,
mhm,
it'd be nice to have a couple days to think about it, which is all she took.
mhm. Yeah, thank you. for
Thank
that.
Very good. Very good. Julie, just in time. So we had an issue, we had 24, we had put in 24 seats, the vote seats. In our budget, it was only budgeted for 18. So we did 3 straw polls, basically. One was, do we drop from 24 to 18, or do we authorize financial team and Caroline to find the money for the other 6? We decided to find the money for the other 6, of course. The second was, we had an additional 6. And what we wanted to do was we put it to the board to do, support those additional 6, and find the money. But in the future, 11% is as high as we're gonna go. So if there's 300 students, there's 33 slots, that's all we're gonna do going forward. Do we need motions to do that? Do we need to put it in our policies? Do we need, is the action of doing the straw poll to show board support the right way to do it?
So as far as moving forward, I'm going to go in turn and answer the different components of the question. Insofar as moving forward, whether it be a policy or a guidance document, it would be best for the public to know whatever formula you're going to utilize to determine the number of slots and then how you're going to fill it, if it's going to be based on randomization or first come, first serve and whatnot. The threshold eligibility, of course, being considered to the extent that there are conditions for that.
So the better in policy or,
I would say guidance. I don't know if it's a policy matter in and of itself, but that there be clearly articulated parameters and that the public be aware of what these criteria are for transparency.
Sure.
As far as authorization for money, you thought you budgeted for 24 spots. This is education. It's an ordinary contingent expense. So as long as you don't spend more than your total dollar amount, you can have the functional units of the budget moved to support it, so long as it's from an authorized source, not, the capital reserve fund, for example. And it probably would be a good thing to have the board take official action to authorize those additional 6 spots, since that wasn't previously envisioned. But it would still be something that would fall within the ambit of what I would call an ordinary contingent expense.
So can you give us
Your
a quick?
resolution?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, no, they went up during the normal period, they went up by 6. I mean, they put the 24, that's how many they asked for, they didn't put any way to pay for it.
Can you just write one by hand?
And then we'll read it into the minutes. While we're doing that, any other comments on the internet?
Nope.
Before we move on to, Elliot, I did have another question, but let me know when it's fine. Not about posies.
Well, we can come back to the motion when Julie gets done.
Mhm.
Writing. a question.
What's the name of the program?
CTI.
So Caroline, I'm not sure if you're able to talk about this now, but in terms of additional personnel, are you still thinking an SEL coordinator? For this upcoming year, and we've talked about that
Yeah.
for a little while, okay. So is that covered, or do we have to approve that to the board?
I think a portion of Julie.
The board should be creating whatever new position is to be put forth for canvassing of individuals to fill. And then you would have your interim superintendent create a job description to support that position and start looking for a person. If that answers the question.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the status, I mean, because I use the board saw a pretty detailed job description.
Oh, that,
Right,
Yes.
but I didn't know where we were. if it
have
was
you
posted
taken
or-
action to
Right,
create the
right.
actual position now?
Oh, we did.
So we need a, do you want me to write them?
I thought we did, didn't
I know you discussed.
We discussed
No, all right.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me finish this one, then I'll get the title.
we? All right. Let's see if we can continue to give Julie things.
Nine minutes to actually.
Wasn't turning on. All right, so anyone else have board docs up? All right, I think the next one is, yeah, the next one's facilities. Well, actually, yeah, Elliot.
Okay. Sorry. Just trying to catch up with the one notes from all the things. Okay. Thank you for giving me a couple minutes. I will try to be moderately brief. Instructional technology, we've got a lot going on. We've completed the voice over IP phone system upgrades. So thank you again to John and his team for helping with the physical installations. Sean Schock on our IT team really drove that project with BOCES. So we're excited to have new phones in every classroom and every office throughout the district. We're also in the process of upgrading our automatic lockdown system. So that's something that the details of which would be discussed in executive session in the forthcoming either safety or technology update. But suffice it to say, we're currently testing the system as is to make sure it's ready for September. We had a vendor call this morning to just clarify our expectations for that. And then there are some pieces we're going to add in the fall. And then some other pieces that we're going to look to add in the spring that would add some additional hardware and flexibility. Again, this is just to expedite getting the message out when we do have to put the building or the campus into lockdown. So some cool things that are updating that, and then that will be shared with the board in more detail in the executive session in a future meeting. We have security camera updates already ordered. They're going to be coming in hopefully either at the very end of the summer or early September. And that's something that we worked on throughout the school year with each building principal and Caroline and our safety committee to just further bolster that system. If you remember a year and a half ago, we ripped out every camera and put new ones where the old ones were. This is the first year that we went in and said, okay, so where weren't they and where do they need to be? And so we started filling in those gaps and those blind spots and really working with our principals to figure out where they need better visibility. Because as you know, with any business or any secured facility, people figure out pretty quickly where you're looking and where you're not. And so we're trying to stay ahead of that curve by putting more eyes in more places. And so those cameras have been ordered, and we look forward to having them installed. Once they're up and running, again, in an executive session, I can actually walk the board through what we can and can't see, or how much better improved our vision is, so that you folks can have a, hands-on better look at what that looks like. We're also going to be upgrading our door access system. I wish Mr. Shapiro was here because he's the one that really asked for it in the first place. So of course, when I have good news about it, he's not here to share. But I will fill him in a future meeting. So we quoted out replacements to the door access system. That system that we're looking to order will be integrated with ID badges that we'll be able to print in-house. So instead of having fobs, the badge itself will provide access. It's also going to interface with the lockdown system, phone system. So we're trying to make everything talk to each other as we implement all these new systems throughout the district. So just working on finding some additional funds to cover the balance of that project, and we'll have that stuff ordered pretty quickly.
This must be the find the funds meeting.
Just
before school starts, everybody, hey, find the funds.
If you'd like to have our attorney authorize the resolution to give me some more money, that would be fantastic.
Oh, yeah. I was actually thinking about what we got, but that's, yeah.
So speaking of me spending more money, I'm kidding. The district has actually joined the cybersecurity cohort program that I'm very excited about. It was offered through Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES. This is the first time that they're doing this type of a program, but as you may recall, last year we were audited by the Office of the State Controller. We had guidance given to us to align our practices with NIST and CIS, or just industry standards for cybersecurity. It's a pretty heavy lift when you're doing it by yourself. And Mr. Hartswick and Mr. Rosenberg on our cybersecurity board subcommittee, they can speak to, we've had to almost reinvent the wheel in a couple of different places very quickly to get ourselves up and running and tighten our security. So this cohort program is working with a cybersecurity consulting firm that's working with us, 4 other districts, and Putnam BOCES themselves. And we're all collaborating on best practice guidance documents that can become regulations in the district. So where we have our policies, these regulations would be like giving teeth to those policies, really giving, what to do, how to do, documentation. We do this, when this happens, we do this. It will include disaster recovery, continuity of business plans, training for our staff. Something that we've talked about internally before is drilling our staff with a network outage. So like, we know what happens when the lights go out. We know what happens when the fire alarm goes off. What do we do when the network goes down? And really making that part of our culture here, where the business office can stay functional, classroom teachers can stay teaching, and we can keep the wheels turning in the district throughout, even when there's a network outage or God forbid a cybersecurity attack. So it was a financial investment for this year, but I had the first meeting in person. It was fantastic. I've got a one-on-one meeting with the consultant in between to really make sure that Millbrook's best interests are represented, and that we're able to collaborate with districts of all different sizes to kind of borrow and idea share best practices to make sure that we're taking care of our network and keeping everything where it needs to be. So very excited about that, and I'll be providing updates to the board and the subcommittee as we move through. We just started putting documents together, but in an upcoming meeting, I'll be able to share. Again, we can have an exec set conversation. I can kind of share out what the framework of these documents is going to look like. Our annual device replacement cycle is underway, and we kept it within our budget this year. Exciting. But what that includes is new Chromebooks. So again, for those that are new to this conversation or watching at home, our goal is to have every student receive a new device when they enter a new building. And that kind of doubles around with our youngest learners. So at Elm Drive, pre-K and kindergarten share a touchscreen tablet Chromebook device. First graders and second graders, so when they get to first grade, they'll get a new clamshell device allocated to them that they'll have for first and second grade. And then when they get to Alden, third graders get a brand new Chromebook. They keep it for 3, 4, and 5. They give it back when they get to 6th grade. They get to the middle school, they get a new device that brings them from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then our high school students get their last device from us as incoming 9th graders that they carry through their senior year. So we've been able to keep our replacement cycles to 4 years or less. When we started this program just before COVID, it was more like a 7-year cycle. So we very quickly shaved that down in a way that made sense from a budget perspective. And it keeps our kids on viable devices throughout their time here. So nobody's really working on an old 6 or 7 year old device. The oldest devices will cycle out next year. So we're excited that by next year, by 23-24, we'll have this fully implemented. The oldest devices will have cycled out from that 7-year replacement cycle from 2017-18.
And they go back to BOCES, right? So where they're.
They are BOCES owned assets, and we have traditionally accessed them with BOCES blessing on BOCES behalf. In other words, they don't want us trucking back a bunch of old stuff. They let us hang on to it as long as we can. And so what we actually do is we pad our loaner stock with the return devices that are aging out. So I may have a 4 or 5 year old device that is still functional, and that'll be the one that I hand to a kid whose device is under repair while we're getting that repaired or replaced for them. So it's helpful to us to keep control of the inventory.
Well, and if we, I mean, rather than have a, stack of 100 sitting in a closet someplace, we should also look at donating these to underprivileged school districts. If we have them, they might as well be used.
There's been some interest expressed before about outgoing seniors or exiting students having access to them.
Yeah.
So it would just be something that the board would have to decide if we want to pursue it, and then we work in agreement with BOCES that we, buy these devices for $1. Some districts have their Ed Foundation buy it for $1 because they're the outside entity. That's the monetary value we assign to an obsolete device.
Absolutely, it's worth it.
Yeah, exactly. So
Not a good participant.
it's something that if the board's interested in, we can look to do at the end of the year for our outgoing students. And part of that program also, besides the student devices, we're going to be upgrading all of our instructional devices, our teaching staff and our business staff or operations staff. So teachers, administrators, we're starting with our admins and our business office. We're going to upgrade PCs and laptops for all of our business folks. And we're phasing in new instructional devices for teachers. Some teachers like having a new Chromebook. Some teachers like having a PC. So we're kind of working with our teaching staff to get their devices replaced as needed. And the last piece of our replacement cycle that I'm also very excited about is we're going to be moving away from the smart board projector combination in favor of an interactive 75-inch flat panel display. We're adding 5 of them to the district this year. And as we move through, we're going to be putting the smart boards on a shelf for emergency replacements, but budgeting hopefully half a dozen a year and phasing in these new interactive devices. We have some in this building already. We're going to be adding some to the high school. There's some down at Elm Drive. So we're kind of bringing them in piece by piece as we go. So that's my technology update. Facilities, I know John's here, so I'm not going to steal too much of his thunder, but I did want to echo Caroline's appreciation for all the seasonal projects that these guys have done this year. They have been very busy all summer. In addition to all the things that you can see, the beautification things, the nice new hallway, which again, credit to John and his team for finding ways to make Mr. Cabello's vision a reality. Steve Cabello had this vision of the 6th grade pod last summer, and this is phase 2 of that vision. So for those that aren't clear, I know we touched on it briefly, but all the 6th grade lockers are now with the 6th grade classrooms in the 6th grade pod. The 7th and 8th graders all have full-size lockers up in the upper hallway, which they don't have to figure out who gets a half and who gets a full. Now, every one of our 7th and 8th graders has a full-size locker. Half of them were moved from here up there. John's guys cleaned up the walls, patched the floors. I mean, we added 4 feet to this corridor as you walk down it. So our 6th graders have a lot more room to move, to breathe, and really contain themselves in this beautiful space. Mrs. Barnes has helped add murals to the walls. And that when that's finished, that's going to be really cool. I don't want to spoil what that's going to look like, but I know Mr. Cabello has a really cool plan for that space as well. And just really making this a special place for our kids. So credit to him for the vision and to John's team for making it a reality. Mr. Lipke and his team have envisioned outdoor learning spaces that our facilities guys have put in. They've completely reconstructed the infields for our softball and baseball fields to allow for better drainage and playability. So these are things that are were overlooked for a long time. The stage at Alden. Can anybody tell me when that stage was sanded and polyurethane? We have people that have been here 30 years and nobody can remember doing something like that. So again, John and his guys really wanted to sink their teeth into those long dragged out things that just haven't been addressed. And so in addition to doing that, they've also put a lot of time and energy into updating their practices for summer cleaning. So I've literally had our custodial workers drag me by the hand. Mr. Garcia, come upstairs. I want to show you what I'm working on. There's like a pride of ownership of the work that they're doing, and I'm just super excited about it. I give John all the credit in the world for taking on these new ideas and new chemicals, new tools, new practices, and just trying to let our staff's talent shine with everything that they're doing. John's also been, I'm talking about you a lot, John, I'm sorry. But John also has taken advantage of some teaching opportunities. So I think this summer I can think of half a dozen skills that our guys have acquired, whether it's sheet rocking, hanging, drop ceilings, doing carpentry work, learning landscaping, pipe work. John's looking to really bring a lot of our formerly outsourced trade work in-house. It's a gradual process, but we're teaching our team how to do things that we used to have to pay more for other people to do. So this makes sense for everybody. It's a win-win across the board. Let's see, what else? I think that covers all. Oh, and tonight, as part of the consent agenda, thank you, board, you authorized service contracts for boiler cleaning. So we're investing in our heating plants, right? This is a $17,000 investment, 17.6, to clean our boilers the right way, rip them apart.
Right.
Yes, thank you Michelle, for your donation. But I mean, in previous meetings, the board has asked, what are we doing to take care of our buildings? And then you asked us to do better. And, John's leading the charge on that work. We're gonna have a contractor, a legitimate Boilermaker come in, rip apart our boilers, clean them, test them, get them ready for the winter. We've also been able to implement support contracts for repairs in boiler making and in electrical, so that God forbid we have a major failure, we don't have to convene an emergency board meeting to authorize an expense and go get 3 quotes. And we call the guy, they come, they get the work done, we get back to school. So we appreciate your support in that initiative. That's something that's new for Millbrook, but it's going to help us. I mean, like everything else we want to do, right? It's going to help us get our kids back to class as soon as possible so we can keep them learning.
And if I ever see steam coming out of that pipe, I'm all.
John, send somebody to close that shop. My last thing here for capital projects. So I know Caroline spoke a lot about our strategic planning initiative overall. We don't want to, we don't want to rebuild the school until we know what we want to do with it. So we're going to take a lot of opportunities to dial in with our staff, our constituent groups, our community, and understand where we want to go. So even if we talked about, I think some of our board members were talking about, should we add program here that can offset some of the BOCES needs? I mean, some of that would involve reshaping classrooms or adding equipment. And so these conversations all dovetail together. And we're excited about using our strategic planning initiative to help define the capital plan for the vote that we're going to put to the public in May. So those planning meetings will likely be offshoots of our greater strategic planning initiative. So that will follow the others. So just to be clear about one of those meetings happening, well, we're going to figure all that out as part of one movement. As part of our capital planning movement, I was just wanted to bring something back to the board that we touched on previously, and that was the need for a construction management firm and the need for a real deep dive into our debt service analysis and our financial plans going forward. So I had mentioned this at the last board meeting where we gave a presentation on capital, but if the board would permit me to just kind of ask, do we want to go with the construction managers that built the high school? Or do we want an RFP to just put it out there and see what's available? I would facilitate the RFP gladly if that's the way the board wants to go. I just didn't want to make those decisions in the bubble. And then the other question would be asking Mr. Rick Timms to provide some debt service analysis, or would the board be amenable to interviewing other firms that have a more of a specialized grasp on that capital project servicing type of work?
You have a recommendation?
I do. I have positive experiences with firms in both categories. I do have one firm in particular that I would recommend for the board to interview for municipal advising in terms of that financial piece. Just because in the 40-some million dollars in capital renovations I've done before, they've been extremely helpful in helping plan out how that debt hits and when our old debt falls off. And that's something that we can do through an RFP process too. If the board would like to just float it out there, we can always ask these recommended firms to participate and then see if anybody else wants to throw their hat in as well. And I would say that we would facilitate that in the same way we did our architectural search. So we put it out there to a bunch of firms, whoever's interested, we can maybe have a subcommittee do an initial interview and then bring our finalists to the board for final setting.
But personally, I don't like the idea of just, oh, they did the high school 16 years ago, so let's give it to them.
I agree.
To me, you get the best result when people are forced to put on, to think about it. And, you know, to come, not beg for it, but come and show us why they're the ones we should choose. That's my personal opinion on both of those things.
I agree.
I agree too. I completely agree.
Great, so
All right.
but there's no, then I'll facilitate both RFPs. And we'll try to get them going as soon as possible. Again, these are people that we want at the table in the fall, so I'll get them out by the end of the month. And we'll probably have interviews in September, and we'll bring the finalists forward, I'd say, in one of the March, October meetings if we can.
The other thing that, and I don't know whether it's gonna be necessary or not, but we really need, if we're gonna make the budget cycle, we need a really strong push on PR. Because people have to understand, these buildings were put up in the 60s. And other than the high school, there hasn't been a major investment in this district in a long time. The addition to Alden is probably the one right behind the high school.
Maybe two.
And, you know, it's just, if you think about the amount of money that we've saved by doing nothing. And then the condition of these buildings and the windows about to fall off and you know, we need to make sure that people understand this is absolutely necessary and that we have spent the last 4 or 5 years basically saying no more. We're not going to allow the buildings to be treated like, you know, it's a clubhouse, and we're not going to allow the maintenance work to, you know, be duct tape and plywood. And we need to make sure that the public understands that, because you know, I mean, when they see that price tag, whatever it is, they're going to go, oh, geez, but they need to really understand, you know, what we've done to secure money in the capital fund, what we've done to basically change the attitude in the district. We really need to focus on that. And I think we need some professional help to do that.
I know.
At least that's just my opinion.
No, I agree. I know our architectural firm does offer some of that PR service. We've also talked to BOCES about leveraging the services we subscribe to with them to get the messaging out there. And I think that doing these RFPs now, this is why I brought it up in August, is that if we get these firms on board by October, we'll have the money guy figuring out how much we can spend and the construction manager validating and vetting the architect's estimates, because they're the actual builders, right? So the architect can say it costs X dollars, and they're gonna say, oh, I just built one of those, and it actually costs X plus 2. And so that kind of helps us tighten up our budget planning, so that by January, we've got January, February, March, 3 months of solid communication with the community before the board adopts that budget in April with that proposition.
Good. All right.
Great, that's all I got.
All right.
So Elliot, just a quick question, because I've had some parents ask me about this. The fields up top, they've all been updated as far as just the softball field, the baseball field, those are the fields we're talking about?
So what we did, yeah, those are natural turf fields, and
Yeah.
they were clay. If I can, from what I understand, there was a lot of things added to the clay fields to make them playable like today. But if you don't have an appropriate plan for follow-up care, you add a lot of material that affects drainage and playability over a long enough period of time, it can actually be a hindrance to the process. So what we did was we brought a contractor in who specializes in infield maintenance, and they cut the old clay out and added an entire new clay infield to both of those fields. So our natural fields will be a lot, they'll be draining faster. And as part of that, there was a training piece where John and some of his guys are going to be working with this vendor to say, okay, so now that we're kind of resetting to 0, if we add Speedy, how much should we add? How fast do we take it off? And then how do we keep this playable? And what I'd like to do is build into the budget going forward, just some minor updates so that we don't have to do a full tear out and rebuild.
Ready for you, John?
Just want to thank all the board members and Mr. Dia, Garcia for all the support and trust in running around the facilities team. All schools are on schedule to open on September 6th. I'll see nothing slowing us down. All school units and air handle units have been serviced and all the filters have been installed. At the high school, we started painting the library and it was scheduled to be completed by August 17th until an unfortunate accident happened. And I still see your scan it done by probably next week. Butterfly garden in the back by the cafeteria is being maintained and we planted some new plants in the garden. All the paper towel dispensers have been installed in all the bathrooms at the high school. 2 basketball hoops we were having major problems with, the motors went on them, and purchased the motors and wrenches, and we had to get a sizzler to get up there, because we couldn't reach the meeting that we had, so that's been taken care of, it's all fixed and ready to go for the season. There was a Bosey's and maintenance shed repair job. So they said it's all on baseball field ready to go. The contractor's gonna monitor, we're waiting for heavy rain. Which we need.
Yeah.
And if the rain, if you've got any puddling up there, we'll come back and we'll adjust whatever you gotta do. So that's all set up. Middle school. By where the garden is outside, these spigots were all frozen and broken in the wall. Years and years, so we took the maintenance team went down there, identified what was going wrong, we ran a new water line, tapped into the main water line, and we ran a new water line out the spigot. The anti-freeze spigot in there, and now the garden, we picked up garden hoses and sprinklers, and we want more, and we put no in. So, guys, if you want to get out there, they're gonna be donating all of them. Festivals to the town, the less fortunate, so that's really worked out well. Parents been joining my kids, so it's really attention. We put all the lighting in room 29, which was we're missing all the colors in there. You couldn't match up the colors no longer, so purchased new LED lighting to make it stand for someone to do. We changed all the lights. That's all done. As Elliot said before, we did the lockers, we took lockers, the old ones out from on top, we put them down here, we went up there and rolled patch and paint and the floor. We're still finishing up on the floor. The old gender bathrooms up on the 3rd floor outside the gymnasium have been painted over. They were in great shape. The superintendent's suite has been painted and suite is scheduled to be completed by August 17th. Which might be the day to after that. What happened with the unfortunate accident. The mirrors have been installed in the student bathroom in the evening. Okay, on that.
Thank you.
Over at Alden, we had to install a new window air conditioner in the tech department. And so the old computers have been working in there. And these pipe rails on the outside, so we're not going to wood up plywood like paint them. So it looks like a regular air conditioner, and like these pipe rails in there. Looks really good. The guys did a good job on that. We did the same thing with room 63 and 64. We put all the LED lighting in there. I've been asking for that for 13 years. So we got that done. So that's completed. We painted all of these outside sockets all around the outside of the building. That's done. All the connection team traps have been replaced as part of the maintenance program. We do every 2 years. That's what they recommend on these new traps. That's all done. We do some of all the outside learning furniture. We place where Tom wanted it, but that's going to, it could be moved and adjusted depending on sun and all that, how it's like outside. And it was installed down here in the bedrooms.
We have brown markers that we go around the edge.
But there was one year that was damaged in the bathroom. We had 3 grand ones to match. Of course, they just changed the one out. Boys and girls.
So John, the things that you like the steam traps.
Yep.
Are they now in a system that pops up every 2 years and says, John, don't forget to do the
Yep.
steam trap?
Yep.
All right,
And then prevent the maintenance.
Good.
That one will be done next year. Then we'll go back to all.
Good.
Helm. Playground, I know everybody has a lot of questions on the playground, we guys today, and we can talk about that later.
Yeah, I can do that now when John's done, you can get back to that.
Okay, yeah.
Well, what's continuing on it, I put my 2 best guys on it now, to move it along, process. You know, the guy this morning that's donated it, so.
Mhm.
He can only work certain times, days, so I'm gave me some pointers on it, my 2 best guys are gonna be down there tomorrow morning, I'll be down there tomorrow morning, and we'll get that project moved. Came to the principal's office over right now, and, new pre-K classroom, is in the process of being all set up. And we gotta put the air conditioner in the library, to support the library, since they moved the library from, so there's no spots in it from the pre-K. To keep the books on, and, any kind of issues, so that was taken care of now. Okay.
I can expand on the Elm project.
Yeah.
One question, I don't know if it's a question for John or you, have you guys been sharing the building condition survey to see if there's any things we can take care of in-house in that long list from the architect?
Oh, yeah, I mean, John was a big part of putting that list together, so so a good number of like what he did, like the steam traps and stuff, were on the building condition report, and they've just been chipping away at it as we can.
Okay.
But as far as the Elm playground, and I apologize for not expanding on that earlier in my report. John and I did meet with the vendor this morning, the donor, and we added labor to his effort to help, you know, because he's only free a couple hours a week. At this time, all but one of the plastic devices have been installed. There's some fine tuning that has to be done, but for the most part, the play pieces are in place. The framework, there was some concerns about the height, but we wanted to clarify to the community and to the board that the height will not exceed 10 feet, so it won't be taller than the actual school building. We're going to be trimming down the vertical pipes to the top of the play area. So if you're out there on Elm Drive, and you'll see that the what I'll call the second level of play, the top of the slides, that's going to be the top of the entire system. So John's guys have already started working to trim those down. It's going to, the entire thing is going to be wrapped in a very tight link, chain link mesh to prevent kids from climbing up of it, falling out of it. So it's going to be very nice and safe within the contained play area. And then we're looking at options for additional matting in addition to the playground mulch that we're going to put around it. So the vendor did make some recommendations for entry and egress mats right on the play devices themselves. We don't think it'll be ready for the first day of school. We're hoping that a few weeks into the school year, we'll be able to get kids on it. So as John noted, he's reallocating our internal labor to kind of pick up where this the donor leaves off every time he's on site, and to support him while he's here to expedite the project. We do have all the materials are either on site or on order. And I'll say that the structural materials are all here. So what we need in terms of pipes, fittings, and things to build it are all here. The fencing is being ordered, but we don't want to put that in place until the structure itself is nice and rigid, so that we don't have any flex in the fencing or slack on that part of the project. So that's where we're at. We also had some community members approach us about beautifications. There was some concerns about the sight lines, the brightness of the colors, the rest of the play devices in Elm are kind of muted and blended with the landscape, and these do not. But some of that bright color would be obscured by the fencing we're going to wrap around it. And we've also talked about some adding some landscape. So we had some community members that said, could we donate trees to the school? And I don't know anybody who would say no to trees being given to us to provide shade and beautification to our new play area. So we had a first meeting with them and they're going to do some research. They're going to bring some ideas. And what we thought the next step would be is just to have the facilities committee meet with these potential donors. Let them give us what they'd like to see or what they'd like to donate, what their budget would allow for. Have our facilities committee kick it around. I'm going to tap our architects because they have a landscape architect as part of their firm and just say, can I plant these here? Is there any danger with our soil and things that are well beyond my knowledge base to just say, is this okay if we put this here and how far apart and where do we space it? But I think it'll be a cool little partnership to dress up something that was going to be a gift to our kids anyway. I'm going to take it a step further. So we're a little excited about that.
Yeah, we really need to knock that out. I mean, you know, it's been sitting there for a while.
Here.
So we need to.
It's been over a
At
year,
least,
I think.
Looked at it before the start of school last year.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was even in the shed for a while before that. But you know, can't go back, but we need to knock that one out as quickly as we can. All right,
Thank you.
anything else? You want to check on your people, see if anybody else has gotten knocked around since? We can't say it. But, well, all right. So, in the agenda, what I'm going to do is after, because this was part of this interim superintendent's report, we'll ask Cheryl to put these motions into the meeting minutes and not the meeting, into the agenda, and then we'll just read them into the minutes right now. First is resolution to authorize expenditures for 30 students to enroll in CTI for the 22-23 school year. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the interim superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby authorizes expenditures of funds necessary to support the enrollment of 30 students, 6 in addition to that which was envisioned during the development of the 22-23 school year budget. In your budget in the CTI program for the 22-23 school year. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Any comments, questions, other questions, concerns? Once again, I just want to, you know, to me, this is the change in attitude in such a short time about CTI is remarkable. I hope it continues. All in favor? Aye. Any against?
Nay, I had said no before.
Second is a resolution to create the position of supervisor of student services. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the interim superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby. Do you ever stay on the same line? It's upon the recommendation of the interim superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby creates a 1.0 full-time equivalent supervisor of student services position effective August 30th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? This, just to be sure, this is to basically cover a lot of what you've been trying to tuck in your position before this, right?
Some of it, this is more the position that, and I have developed the job description. But this is more the, I guess, so yes, some of it, it's the branching minds, the anti-bullying, character education, it's the, kind of all of it. Yeah.
You know, the salary before we.
Well, this is only creating the position so that they can go interview and then we can talk about salary.
And who that person reports to that.
Anything else? All in favor? Aye. Any against?
Good job reading it very bad. It really
I
is.
tell you, that's a
nothing
challenge,
fancy.
man, when it goes, the Board of Education. It's like,
And especially with all the scrap jobs I had.
very nice. Yeah, so Sarah can get.
A great job for on the fly, Julie.
Handwriting has never been my strongest suit. I'm a much better type.
All right, next is old business. We were talking about education elements agreement.
Yeah, there was a request for changing dates at, a previous meeting.
Mhm.
But this is essentially the same agreement with the dates updated to reflect starting again in the beginning of the school year. And pushing out, I think, till January.
So do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion, anything you wanted to, else you wanted to say, Caroline?
No, I'm just really excited to continue this work. I think we made some really good progress in identifying our collective values and looking at the mission and vision of the district. So now it's about setting some goals, where we want to be in 5 years, and then the strategic objectives of how we're going to get there. So this is a time to hear more from the community again on the next phase of the project, and the core team will remain static as we continuously review and then push more things out for consideration by the community, and kind of a back and forth iterative process until we get to a point where we're ready to publish and start checking things off the list.
Is this being covered by a grant? Is that?
That is correct.
Any other questions? Concerns, comments?
I just, it was called the branding, yes, branching minds. When you mentioned that, do they, so that'll kind of gauge like where the kids are in conjunction with like the math, like will all the grades will be on the same page with like math and stuff like that. And do they look at kids who are okay, like they're falling behind or they're not at grade level, stuff like that? Do they provide like direction with that? And if they say like we need more tutors, like is that something that we have to go back and look like?
No, but what they will do is, we set benchmarks, which we've been doing for a while, benchmarking. So our data and our interventions will all be housed in one area. So when we're looking at a student who maybe is struggling in math, and we find that they're also struggling with attendance, and they're also struggling with social emotional, they're visiting the counselor frequently. You can look holistically at a child, sort of on one page, all of the things, all the data that we have on that particular student. And then there's a bank of interventions and recommendations for what to do next, but it would be our service providers doing that. Yeah, sure.
Anything else? On the approving the education elements agreement? All in favor? Aye. Any against? Right, new business, RFP discussion. There's a number of options for finding a new superintendent. You of course can do it yourself, the board could choose to do it. Last time that we did it, we had Dutchess County BOCES do it for us. And sort of in my same, frame of mind in the facilities discussion, to me, I think our best bet is to put it out an RFP, see who responds, what they would charge us to do a search. What they'll do is they'll narrow it down, and they'll throw the net as wide as we want. And then they'll narrow it down, bring us, a certain number of candidates. We interview them, then we do a second interview. But really, this RFP discussion is, does the board want to put out an RFP for, a search engine, basically, to help us find the next superintendent? So I throw it out to you guys.
So be like a recruiter,
Sorry.
like a recruiter?
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Yeah. I think that would be
So
great.
what options are we do ourselves, we go to BOCES?
Yeah.
Or we do our phase?
Yeah.
Those would be the three.
and I don't know whether BOCES would actually reply or not, because there's other, both like Columbia County BOCES or Hudson County, whatever, yeah. So I don't know whether they would throw their hats in or not, but there's, there are professionals that do this. So does anybody have an issue if we put that RFP out? get that started. All right, well, that was easy. All right, so we move to first reading of policy 6,000, the 6,000 series, I should say. There's no real motion necessary. This is just, are there any, after doing a first read through of the 6,000, probably 11, maybe 14, something like that. But just the bottom part is really the comparison. Any thoughts from the board? Any any initial reactions, responses? Okay. The next item is the same thing. And what we're going to do, so just to back up a second. The second reading will probably be on the 30th. So if there's anything specific, you want to bring forward, make sure that you're ready to go in 2 weeks. Or we can always, if the board needs more time, we can push it off. First reading of policy 7,000 series, same discussion. Anything that the board wants to, put out there? Okay. Accept the letter of resignation from Brittany Hillman. You see the motion. Do I have a motion to accept? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any comment, question, concern?
Commissioner Lowe?
All in favor? Aye. Any against? All right. The next section, I'm sure I've explained this enough times, but if there's something that you want it brought to a meeting, whether it's I don't know, a discussion on the construction of the capital fund, or whatever. This is where, put them on this list. We also have this huge file that Cheryl maintains that says, don't forget on the second meeting of the July, you got to do this and you got to do that. They happen every year, but is there anything that's not on here that you want to kind of bring forward?
I was wondering, is the will the code of conduct review be the next meeting? Or do you need more time with that?
We posted it last week, so I'm trying to think what that was. We posted it on the 13th, so it won't be able to be approved until September 13th, but we can bring it to the board for review at the next meeting.
It's scheduled for the 30th, but if we can do that, that would be good. Same thing, I know it's not on here. You don't need every little thing, but I would really like, he probably doesn't really want to come back in front of the board, but I would really like to see from Brian Fitzgerald where they are, some data that says they really are ready, that kind of stuff. So if we can make sure that that's on for the 30th.
My other question was, I know we have rotating principals report throughout the year. What does the board feel about having a schedule for our athletic director reporting throughout the year?
Reporting what would you?
Attending the meeting and speaking
That's
about
really-
like facilities and.
Right, and he's also dean of students, so updates,
Once a month, or
calendar,
one meeting a month.
doesn't have to be every month. but-
Well, maybe we could-
Sports and then we do student stuff like.
Yeah, maybe we could have him do the opposite one from John. So John's on 1 week or one meeting and then he's on the second one. something like that. I'm probably at the first couple of times, John knows kind of what to talk about, when he first started. It was like, an 80-minute dissertation on building conditions. And now it's getting to the point, like, oh, that doesn't sound right, but it's getting to the actual issues and what's being done on them. So it may take a little bit to get, sort of ready to do that. But. All right,
I had two things. I think Chris at the last meeting, if I'm not mistaken, was asking about what the incoming employee gets as like a code of conduct for the employee. And maybe if we get a copy of that, I recall that, maybe take a look at, aside from their contract, what they get as, I don't think they get the code of conduct like on the website. So maybe we can have that for a reference. And then my second thing was just because of the whole BOCES topic and related. Do we have any relationships with the local colleges or universities? Because I think like Poughkeepsie district has a huge program with Vassar. And so we can discuss that and get into that because that could give us other options such as BOCES. And I think that'd just be so great for our students. And I don't know if we already have that in place, but that would be a good opportunity.
I'm not sure what kind of relationship you're talking about exactly. I know that some school districts have a member of their faculty serve on, say, the professional development committee. We do not have that, but what we do have is we have several courses at the high school that are offered with Marist credit, several that are offered with Dutchess Community College credit. We have Syracuse University Project Advanced credit for our forensics program. And we also have credits that are granted through RIT for our Project Lead the Way tree engineering program.
Are those like AP classes or that's something?
That's separate.
Okay.
So some of them, you can, so for example, we have a Marist College Connections math class, say, that you can take for Marist credit. But you can also challenge the AP exam in May and you can get AP credit. Sometimes one or the other may be more transferable depending on the institution that you're looking to apply to. So sometimes students, will take advantage of one over the other.
I don't have anything more like branch in mind. I just, and right, like what specific is the relationship? Is it that similar? But I don't know if we can maybe look into more, see what else is out there, how we can be closer to them.
Yeah, sure.
And fit each other.
Yeah, thank you.
there was there was a program at Bard. Which was, it had,
Is it a music program?
I mean, it was kind of like a weird liberal arts course structure. It had like courses that didn't seem to fit together. But when we looked into it, well, how much was it?
It was really
It
exciting.
was
I don't
like
recall off the top of my head.
$50,000, $60,000. I mean, it was, and we were like, well,
Wow.
maybe not.
It was very exciting.
All right. All right. Go ahead, yeah.
No, I want it.
You don't have to sit. All right, do I have a motion to go into executive session for discussion pertaining to the employment history of particular persons? We may, just for anybody that's listening, we may, when we come back from executive session, we may have additional actions to put on or to take after executive session, just so everyone's aware. So do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Any against? All right, how about 10 minutes? Anybody's got a stretch?
Anybody wants to go through yours?
Yeah,
I don't know.
you better go.
Actually, too.
Well, let's see.
Let's go.
Take care. Good night, everyone.
I hate it. Alexa,